to the court. Yes, sir. No, sir.
Just be respectful.
Yes, ma'am. Be respectful. It's important.
Is it, you know, and again, I've unfortunately been to municipal court on more than a few occasions, mostly for family members and my wife. There aren't a lot of trials going on. It seems like most things are handled informally or through a plea process. Is that the case, and how does that work?
Well, and family members are always the worst paying clients as well, but it is costly. It's a costly proposition. And the municipal court, in many ways, is a revenue-raising institution for the state.
People need to understand that.
It's there to collect money. And one of the most common plea options that we see in municipal court is something called unsafe operation. You go to court, a lot of the judges refer to it as a 97-2, which is an abbreviation for the statute 39:4-97.2, where the state which the state enacted several years back, and basically said this: Armin McComber gets a speeding ticket. He's going to have 4 points on his license. His insurance is going to go up. Armin has an interest in getting those points thrown out, and we need to collect some money. So we're going to charge Armin a fee to the court, typically $156 or thereabout. You pay your court cost $33, and then there's a $250 surcharge that's tacked on to the top that goes right off down to Trenton. So it's expensive.
That's ridiculous, I have to say.
$400 plus dollars. It's ridiculous, but people do it, and they do it because it's worth it, because it will save you money in the long run. Now, it's important to know you're only allowed to do that 2 times in a 5-year period. So you have to be mindful. One other thing I would suggest is before you go to municipal court, go on the Motor Vehicle Commission website and get a copy of your abstract so you know exactly what your history looks like.
So you're saying even with a 2-point ticket, a minor speeding ticket, it may still be worth it to plea out to that, to pay the $250 surcharge of the state of New Jersey just because it might save you money on your insurance?
No points is always better than points. And the reason is because even though that 2-point speeding ticket may not be the end of the world, what if something happens next week? What if you get another ticket? What if, God forbid, you're in a car accident? And now your insurance company, now you're starting off from the position where you have 2 points on your record. So it's always better, and obviously you need to make the assessment of the cost and the benefit in each situation. And depending upon your particular situation with your insurance company, if you have 5 teenage sons who all drive red Corvettes and they're all under your insurance policy, then it's important for you, maybe, than opposed to if you've never had a ticket or an accident in 30 years. Maybe your insurance company will be a little bit more forgiving.
Everyone obviously is very much against driving while intoxicated. No question about it. And but again, on the occasions I've gone to municipal court and I've seen the defendants who've been charged with DWI and some of the fines and the penalties and the charges they're looking at. It's extraordinary. When you get caught driving under the influence, it is really severe. And can you talk about that and what are some of the... It also seems to be an area of law that's constantly advancing. The fines are getting worse. The penalties are getting worse all the time. Is that true?
It is. And any discussion of DWI law always has to start with the public policy because the laws are in place for a reason and they're important. And every year, and seems now more often, every week, every month we open the newspaper and you read about some horrific accident that perhaps could have been prevented.
No question. It's terrible. But New Jersey is very severe. I mean, even
New Jersey is very severe, again, because the combination of alcohol and a motor vehicle is a deadly combination. And, you know, I'm a defense attorney. I'm also a father. So my 2 children get strapped in car seats every day and they share roads with the rest of us. So the law is in place for a reason. That being said, in my experience, most folks who are charged with this are good people. They're people who go to happy hour and maybe instead of having 3 glasses of wine, they have 4. Or they go to a wedding and they think that they're okay, but they're not. And they get pulled over. And you're right, the consequences are staggering. I
mean, some states let you drive to work even after you've pled guilty to a DWI. New Jersey doesn't.
New Jersey has some of the most strict DWI laws in the country, and they're getting more strict. Recently this year, for instance, earlier this year, New Jersey enacted a law that now requires a mandatory interlock device for a first-time offender if your blood alcohol content is 0.15 or above, and for subsequent offenses, mandatory interlock device. An interlock device is, if you've ever seen this movie, the 40-year-old version, where he has the drunk girl in the car.
I have seen that movie. Yeah.
And he needs to blow into the device to start the car. You literally have to blow into this instrument that's installed in your vehicle.
After you get your license back?
To start the car, both for the term of the suspension and for a period of time after you get your license back. This is significant. You point out New Jersey does not allow a conditional license to get back and forth to work.
Or you can lose your job just based on...
You can lose your job. Look, their mandatory license suspension, mandatory surcharges, first offense, $1,000 a year for 3 years from the Motor Vehicle Commission, significant fines to the court, alcohol classes that you need to take, community service for second offenses and subsequent offenses, jail time. You know, it's the penalties are significant.
So don't drink and drive.
Rule number one is always drink and drive. If you do and you're caught and you're charged, in these cases, there is never an excuse for going to court without an attorney. And if you can't afford an attorney, go to court and apply for the public defender.
I've been reading in the paper about Kylie's Law, and that seems to be pretty prohibitive for underage or under 18 drivers, or I guess even under 21 drivers. Can you tell our viewers something about Kylie's Law? What it is?
Kylie's Law was enacted earlier this year, and it was enacted after the tragic death of Kylie D'Alessio, a Morris County teenager who was killed in 2006 in an automobile accident where the driver was a teenage driver. And the law seeks to address this problem of inexperienced driving. You know, young kids, they get their license, and they don't have the same experience that someone who's been driving for a while does. Sometimes they push the limits a little bit more. Sometimes a younger person, their assessment of risk and reward is a little bit different.
So how does it address it?
Well, here's what it does. Number one, most significant, it requires that the driver under the age of 21 place on their front and rear license plate a decal that tells everybody and a law enforcement officer that they're under the age of 21. So if they're operating their vehicle after 11 p.m., for instance, they're not supposed to be on the road. Under Kylie's Law, from 11 p.m. till 5 a.m. in the morning, you're not allowed to be driving. You're only allowed to have one other occupant in your vehicle. You're not allowed to use any handheld devices, cellular or otherwise. And there's been a lot of opposition to this law. Legislation has recently been enacted that would change this law. Parents are expressing concern. There's constitutional issues first, but parents are expressing concern about their children now, young adults, having this mark on their vehicle, perhaps an invitation to would-be predators.
Sure.
And they point to a situation that happened in Florida in the 90s where a group of tourists were murdered as the result of a requirement that rental cars have a similar sticker on the license plate. So Kylie's Law is still up in the air, but anyone with children under 21 has to be aware of it.
So it's a rapidly developing area.
Yes.
Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for this episode. I'd like to thank Mr. Mollo for a very informative and helpful discussion. Join us next time for Outlook Monmouth.